Today marks the 30th anniversary of Metroid's release in North America. It launched on August 15th, 1987 for the Nintendo. When I did a retrospective for the 25th anniversary in 2012, the last game to be released was the awful Metroid Other M in 2010. By 2012, things were looking grim, but I was hopeful. It was the 25th anniversary after all. Surely Nintendo had plans, but turns out they didn't. The situation is almost the same as it was 5 years ago, but before we look at the state Metroid is currently in, let's go through every game of the series as a refresher. First we have Metroid, followed by Metroid 2 Return of Samus, then Super Metroid, Metroid Prime, Metroid Fusion, then the remake of Metroid, Metroid Zero Mission, and then we continue on with Prime 2 Echoes, Metroid Prime Pinball, Metroid Prime Hunters, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, Metroid Other M, Metroid Prime Federation Force. That's the release order, but the timeline is unsurprisingly different. It actually looks like this. Do you like my little hand-drawn arrows in my circle? It's a bit crude, but I think you get the point. So this means that 2002's Metroid Fusion is the furthest chronologically, and we haven't been updated in 15 years. I wonder if Prime 4 will go beyond that. Speaking of, let's get back to the present. So Nintendo has finally acknowledged Samus once again. Last year we got Metroid Prime Federation Force in 3DS, which was equally as shameful as Other M. Then at E3 this year, Nintendo announced Metroid Prime 4 was in development for the Switch, and Metroid 2 is getting remade for the 3DS, which is set to debut next month. I'm a little worried about those two announcements for various reasons. I could go into them now, but I'd rather stay positive and hope for the best. So yes, it's been a long wait for Samus to return, but if you thought the wait from 2010 to 2016 was long, well, I have news for you. Metroid to Metroid 2 was 87 to 91, so not that big of a difference. Metroid 2 to Super Metroid was another 3-4 years, from 91 to 94. Super Metroid to Metroid Fusion was 1994 to 2002. Metroid missed the Nintendo 64 and Game Boy Color, but in 2002 to 2010, it was pretty heavily supported. 8 out of the current 13 games, not including next month's Metroid 2 remake, were released in that time period. It's pretty insane! And then it dropped off at the end of 2010 to 2016 with Federation Force, which again, is not that good of a game. But I have my fingers crossed that this remake is good, because the remake of the first one, Metroid Zero Mission, is fantastic. But this huge list of gaps is strange, isn't it? Nintendo created one of the first female video game characters, which was progressive at the time, but they're treating her almost as bad as Princess Peach. It's like they're unsure what to do with the franchise. Sales have never been great in the series, especially in Japan. In fact, out of all those games, only Metroid and Super Metroid released first in Japan. Think about that, a Japanese series releasing first only twice out of its 13 game releases. That's crazy. The rest launched first in North America. Japan didn't even get Metroid Prime Hunters until the Wii U eShop made it available in 2015, 9 years after the game's initial launch. But when Pokemon and Mario make your money, why bother with anything else, right? It's easy to be cynical about this kind of stuff, but Nintendo is a business. The Metroid games review well, mostly, but they just don't make the money compared to those two giants. It's understandable then why Nintendo has shunned it for so long. I know things are starting to sound dire, but let me rekindle that fire of hope inside of you. While I've missed Metroid and Castlevania for that matter, the genre those two created has blossomed inside a thriving indie community. The Metroidvania is alive and well thanks to games like Axiom Verge, Guacamelee, Dust and Elysian Tale, the various Shantae games, and the newest hit, Sundered, and so many others out there. I'm glad there are so many passionate people out there, both as fans and creators. Not just games either. Samus and the Metroid series live on in some of the best fan art I've ever seen, let alone cosplay, and so much more. It touches my heart, it really does. And you can say the same thing about any kind of fan community, but it means so much more to Metroid because of how unfair it's been treated throughout its 30 years of existence. So I want to close on this. Engulf yourself in the Metroid fan community this month. Seek out the treasures out there. And for God's sake, if you like Metroidvanias and haven't played any of the indie games I've listed above, correct that. Also, you need to play Super Metroid, Zero Mission, and Fusion. The other games are fun, but those are my top 3 favorites. Zero Mission is probably the best overall, I like the biosuit stuff in Fusion, and graphically Super Metroid is phenomenal. And that's that! Happy 30th Samus, and thanks everyone for watching. Did you know that was a Reaction Examiner video? If you liked it, you should subscribe to me to keep up with everything that I'm doing. Also, if you have some other interests, like sex for example, check out Tomops, which is a comedy sex podcast thing wherein my best friend and I check out the weird and abnormal and the erotic. And of course you should support me on Patreon because hey, I want to make the channel better and I want your help to do so. Plus, if you want to check out my writing, check out Game Jerk, where I have archives and new stuff for all projects, okay? You can find all the stuff and more in the description with the links below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.